Good morning, everyone. Welcome in. I will give 30 seconds while people filter in, and then we will kick off with today's session. Hopefully you've got some sunshine wherever you are. I know the three of us were just saying we've got glorious sunshine, which feels lovely at this time of year. Morning, Mehul. Hope you're well. Feel free to say hello and let us know that you're in. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, let's get going. Hello to everyone. Good morning. Welcome to today's session, which is titled Bookkeeping in 2024, Navigating the Challenges and Opportunities. My name's Kaylee Graham. I'm the Head of Partnerships and Growth here at Telleroo, where we support bookkeepers and accountants to deliver a seamless bulk payment solution to their clients. I am joined by two fabulous ladies who I will let introduce themselves shortly. But first of all, a little bit of housekeeping. So this session is for you. So please do add your thoughts in the chat. Say hello to everyone as you are already. Let us know if you agree with what we say. Let us know if you disagree with what we say, but just no heckling, please. There will be Q&A at the end. Please do use the Q&A box for that, just so that nothing gets lost in the chat. And then lastly, there will be polls throughout. Please do answer these. They're really going to add to the discussion that we are having. But without further ado, I'm going to hand over to you, Justine, first of all, to introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Justine Marshall and I run Pinpoint Bookkeeping here in sunny Glasgow. I grew up in a family business and started bookkeeping probably about 13 years old on paper ledgers. So it's been a journey. I really enjoy the tech of it and I just love what I do. I love the whole process and especially how far we've come.
Definitely. Thank you very much and thank you for joining us. And over to you, please, Penelope.
Hello, everybody. So I'm Penelope Allard and I'm the Director of Wild Bookkeeping. Like Justine, I learned bookkeeping in the family business when I was about 13 on proper old-fashioned paper ledgers with possibly a calculator if I was really lucky. So it's been lovely watching the profession evolve, really, and the tech that we have now is just fantastic and it gives us so many brilliant opportunities. So I love using it in my business, streamlining for clients. We're a completely remote practice, so everything that we do does involve using tech. So having good systems in place is really important. There
is probably a whole nother webinar in the future, Penelope, about running completely remote businesses. We at Telleroo are completely remote, as you know. So we'll flag that to Rebecca and get another one in the diary for future. But on that note, let's dive straight in. And Penelope, I'm going to come straight back to you if that's okay. What do you see as the biggest challenges in the bookkeeping industry at the moment?
I think we've got huge challenges with businesses with, I think a lot of them are facing financial struggles at the moment and cost of living. And I think it's very easy for them to say, actually, we're going to cut back on costs and then not have a bookkeeper in the company. I know, speaking to a lot of my colleagues, both in accounting and bookkeeping, people are finding clients are very price sensitive at the moment. But I think it's really important to express that value. I think if businesses are going to succeed, they really do need to have a handle on those numbers. And it's really important that we try to communicate that value to our clients. Obviously, using tech and streamlining things can help us to keep prices in, manageable for clients. But I think that's one of the biggest challenges we've got at the moment is just expressing that value and getting clients on board. It's really, really important for them to have a good bookkeeper.
Definitely. Justine, does that resonate with what you're seeing at the moment?
Absolutely, I completely agree with that. I also think that historically, we did start with paper ledgers, or some of us did. We then moved on to a software, and that software pretty much stayed the same for a really long time. Annually, maybe we would get an update and it changed two tiny things, and you'd want it to go a little bit further than it did, but it was kind of frustrating. And then 10 to 15 years ago, all of a sudden, all these new apps appeared and cloud accounting came along, and it really changed the way that we do things. And that's evolving constantly. There's constantly new things out there. And I think keeping ourselves educated on that and making sure that our clients are on the right softwares for them and we're using the right software for us is challenging.
Definitely. Do you think that evolution of technology has impacted the way that clients see the value of having a bookkeeper?
I think certainly for some clients, they do. I think there's a lot of clients that still stick to original softwares. They still have their paper envelopes that they send to you. I think it can be quite difficult sometimes to move the mindset because they don't really understand how things have moved on and how much easier their life can be. So definitely communicating that is a really important task.
Definitely.
I think there's certain software adverts, which I'm sure we can all name the ones, that just give the impression that you just press a button and the software does it all for you, without really expressing that you need to put the right information in first before you press the button. And so I think that is a huge challenge. I always say to people, we just make a lot of money sorting it out when clients have done it themselves and it hasn't worked.
It's
yeah.
It's a real challenge, right? And naturally, as like software vendors, we have this conversation. I think this is really, really important from a transparency perspective, is that most software companies, us included, we have two main channels, right? One which is directly to businesses and one which is partnering with you guys. And I think what happens is often the messaging of those two things are not married up. And what you end up seeing is a messaging going out to businesses that's like, we can do this all for you and it's so easy and you don't need any help. And then the other messaging that's like, let us empower you to offer this as a service. And it's really interesting watching kind of that disparity between them sometimes, and that actually there probably needs to be a piece that says, hey, look, you probably could do this on your own, but make sure you're considering this, this, and this, or come over here and have that conversation. I think, unfortunately, sometimes, yeah, the messaging doesn't marry up there, right? Which is unfair, but like you say, it definitely creates some situations for you guys to go and fix.
Yeah, and I think clients with the right support, there are different. I've got some clients who do a lot of stuff themselves, but under our guidance, we've given them the training to start with, and then they're able to pick certain things up. Other clients either can't do it, don't want to do it, and then there's a full service option there. But I think it's just so important for business owners to actually get advice from somebody really right at the beginning.
But it's really a lot easier for us to do it than to fix other people's mistakes. I mean, that's key, actually.
Yeah, 100%. If we can get it right first time, right, that's the ideal. We had, when I used to work in NatWest, that was one of my core things that we had to follow, was right first time. And that was the idea every single time, because yes, you can go back and fix these things, but if we can get it right in the first place, ideal. I'm actually going to launch a poll question now, which is around how comfortable everyone in the audience is around selling the value of their services to clients. And I think this is going to be really, really interesting, and it feeds beautifully in from what we were talking about, right? Which is that actually, if we look at some of the messaging in the accounting industry at the moment, there is a lot of firms talking about outsourced finance functions and VFO service lines, etc., which actually the bulk of what they're offering is just good bookkeeping services, with a few bolt-ons most of the time. And I think that feeds into the question to you guys, which is, how do you position bookkeeping as that valuable service when potentially clients are being targeted with that kind of messaging elsewhere?
I think it's like you say, it's the absolute foundation to any other service that can be offered. If that's not right, then none of the rest of it is going to be right. So to me, our role is the most important role. I'm sure lots of people would dispute that, but in my mind, if that's not right, you're not going to move forward, really.
No, I would agree. I think it's really important, and it's a based transactional volumes. The number of times I've seen, if a client maybe has done their own bookkeeping, they don't, for example, understand, when is a cup of coffee not a cup of coffee? So, are we traveling? Are we entertaining? Are we at a networking event? There are so many different ways that you could code a simple cup of coffee. And that's something that clients, if they're doing it themselves, they just don't understand. And then it gets to doing their year-end accounts or their tax returns, and they expect that whoever's going to take those figures is going to correct things, but you're not going to trawl through thousands of transactions to look for those small nuances that are incorrect. So having someone that really knows and understands what they're doing at the beginning is really important, and it's the foundation and the bedrock to everything else.
And I think it's the impact of that, right? I think a lot of clients, when we talk about bookkeeping as a service, I think a lot of the time they don't understand the impact of those things. So when it's kind of put to them as, oh, well, you might miscode something, they're kind of like, okay, but it's explaining the impact of what those things have, that they then go, okay, right? And actually, if we look at the poll here, thankfully, we've got about nearly 60% saying that they are very comfortable with positioning those services. But we've also got 35% of people here saying, actually, I'm neutral or I'm quite uncomfortable with that. And I think that's really, really interesting because they will know what they're doing and the value of it, but it's that communicating and selling that on to clients that's really, really hard. Penelope, when you first started, were you as comfortable as you are now, or was that a bit of a learning curve?
No, definitely a learning curve. I think when I first started, I was hourly pricing rather than doing fixed pricing. And actually that's a real challenge where software comes in, because the more you get to know a client, the more you automate stuff, the quicker things take. And if you're charging hourly, there's actually no incentive to be better at doing the job. So that's one major issue there as well. And also it's communicating to clients what you're doing, and they think something's really quick and really easy, and then it takes longer than they expect. So I think it's really important to look at the value of what you're doing and to focus on the outcome. Really what we're doing is we're providing peace of mind. We're allowing people to sleep at night because they know that their figures are right and that they're going to be HMRC compliant. We're not selling them bookkeeping, we're selling them the ability to sleep at night.
I love that. That's definitely the quote we're pulling from this, right? And that's exactly it, right? It's not about the inputs, it very much is the output. It's that peace of mind, it's the not worrying, etc. Vicky just popped in the chat, if I think the client would benefit from it, then I find it much easier to put things forward. And I think that's exactly the case. When you understand how a client is going to benefit from it, it's way easier to sit them down and explain something to them and pitch it to them effectively, right? And I think everyone shies away from the word selling, but that's exactly what it is, right? It's letting them know what the benefit of something is and what the investment is for you guys to do that for them.
I think it's a duty to tell them if they want their business to succeed, they need to understand their numbers and they need to know what difference that's going to make. And it's no good waiting till you get to the end of the year, plus a few months by the time you've pulled everything together for a tax return or for your year-end accounts with a limited company. You need to know what they are now and today. If you're going to decide if you can afford to buy that piece of equipment or do some training or change your pricing, you need to know what your numbers are today, and that's where the real value comes in. And with the technology and software we've got, it's so easy to have that, that possibility.
Definitely. I know, Justine, we had a conversation before where actually we were talking about the fact that more and more people are starting to see that value, right? And one of the introducers that used to introduce business to you is now asking you, hey, can you train us up on how to do this, right? Because actually they're finally really understanding that need that businesses have for that information.
Yeah, I think I was very comfortable with hourly rates. I was very comfortable charging them. I didn't feel I was too expensive and all the rest of it. But then what I would do is if I felt that the work had taken too long, I'd charge less hours. So it becomes a bit ridiculous. And I think with the introduction of all these time-saving apps, it really makes less and less sense to do it that way. But at the same time, I think it takes quite a bit of confidence to start fixing your prices. I think in the early days, it can be quite difficult to understand the scope of the work before you begin. And it's really important to sort of spend quite a bit of time, I think, getting that right and layering on the complexities that might affect your pricing. Definitely.
I'm going to launch a poll for the audience that is asking how they charge. Are they charging hourly rates? Are they charging monthly value-based fees? And I'm hoping lots of people are going to be saying monthly fees. Fingers crossed. But actually, I guess in that switch across from hourly rates to monthly fees, were there any, we're not going to call them disasters, were there any key learnings, Justine, any examples you had where you went, oh dear, I might have priced that wrong?
No, I don't think so. I think I did. I just drilled it and drilled it and drilled it until I felt it was right. I did have situations where I was kind of doubling someone's costs because I hadn't raised it for years and years and years, and I realized the scope of the work had grown so much, and I just avoided dealing with it. So now I reprice quarterly. And I think that's really good because the price sometimes is increased, but sometimes it drops. So the client kind of begins to see that you're not charging more, you're just doing more work. And I think that's a really good insight.
Definitely. We've got about 17% still on an hourly rate, 74% on a monthly fee, and a few others. On the others, it's looking more like we've got a mix, depending on the type of work and the relationship with the client. I know Kirsty's put in there, she's still got a couple on hourly because actually it's more admin work and that amount of work varies on a month-by-month basis. And so that seems logically like it might be the best way to still charge for that. So that's fantastic. Thank you all for that. And the second one I'm going to launch just around pricing is whether you think that you are charging enough. We've got yes, I'm unsure, no, but we plan on raising our prices, and no, but we don't know how to raise our prices. which I think is a whole nother issue in itself, and definitely one for another day. Justine, Penelope, how do you feel on that spectrum? Are you charging enough?
Yeah, sometimes I question. Oh, sorry, go on,
Go on,
Penelope.
go on, Justin, go on.
No, on you go.
I was going to say I hadn't put my prices up for years, I will be honest, and I realized it was a mindset thing. When I first started my business, a friend who was a tax advisor suggested an hourly rate to me, and I said, that seems really high, and they said, go in because you'll never put your prices up. And I hadn't realized until years later that actually that phrase, you're never going to put your prices up, had stuck in my mind. I had a real block on that. And it's only when I started using Go Proposal and moving everything over to fixed pricing and talking to other bookkeepers, and I realized actually what I was charging was fine, but the fact I'd never put my prices up was actually a really big issue. And we now do annual price increases every year. And as Justine says, we reprice every quarter because that's based on the volume of the work. And sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. And apart from the odd one or two clients that push back on an annual increase, which generally speaking, the ones that I'm happy to wave goodbye to anyway.
Yeah.
I find there isn't a pushback. People expect an annual price increase, and I think it's really important. Otherwise, you're not going to maintain a profitable business. You know, our software costs go up, our staff costs go up. You know, you have to be. How can you tell your clients how can your clients trust you to guide them in running their business if you're not running your business successfully and profitably first?
100%. What about you, Justine?
Go Proposals are a tool as well, and I think it's really good because you can, if you hit a problem where something's been really time consuming for you, you can write that into the proposals for future, so you learn as you go and you know what questions to ask at the beginning of the process. And it means that, you know, as long as you're evolving that constantly, you're going to charge the right prices. I think in terms of if we're charging enough, I think we probably are. I think it's important that you have people that turn you down. And we do. So if everybody's saying yes, I think you're not charging enough. And I do know that the clients that we have see the value in the price that we charge. So nobody's really, we've had it occasionally where someone's asked for cheaper prices and they've gone elsewhere. And to be fair, they were maybe very straightforward accounts. Maybe I need to look at that, you know, for the very straightforward ones to find a way in my proposals to reduce that a little bit. I'll do things like, you know, a single bank account discount sort of thing. So there's little ways within the proposal that I can reduce prices for simplified companies. But yeah, just make sure that some people are turning you down.
Definitely. I think just on that question that went out to the audience there, 53% of our audience say no, but we plan on raising our prices. And I think that's really, really great to see. It's not an easy conversation. No one likes it, right? I think that's the reality. No one enjoys that conversation, but it's so important. And I think particularly tying into what you said, Penelope, around the fact that actually you are giving business owners advice on what they should be doing and supporting them to run their own businesses. And if any of your clients turned around and said, we haven't raised our prices in 10, 15 years, you'd probably be wanting to scream at them, right? So actually it's about taking that advice on inwards, right? And the same thing, as you said, Justine, around discounts, etc. It's something even from a software perspective, naturally, all of you lovely lot like to ask us for discounts, right? But as I always push back, I go, actually, there's two reasons why we don't. One is I can tell you that it's fair across everyone that uses us. And the second is, if I don't value the price, why on earth would you, right? And that's the reality of it. But fantastic to see that people are raising their prices. And we've also got 37% of people saying that, yes, they absolutely are charging enough. So don't forget your annual increases. Let's keep you in that bracket. But moving on from that, we've talked a lot about some of the traditional bookkeeping services and charging for that. Outside of that, what additional value add services have you started to offer to clients? And I'm going to start with you, Penelope, if that's okay.
So as well as bookkeeping, obviously we're doing payroll, VAT, management account services, and I'm currently looking at the moment on how we can add sustainability services in for clients as well. So I think a lot of people don't realise that. So we've got scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. And scope 3 is what we're getting from our suppliers and in our supply chain. And if you want to supply the NHS, then you have to have a sustainability report, and that's from the beginning of April. This is going to roll out to all large companies, and it will eventually trickle down that supply chain. I've actually been working with some software vendors in the space that will hook up with Xero and do a carbon-based spend. and looking at ways that we can use that software and bring the price down so that it's suitable for smaller companies and ways of measuring that. So yeah, we're currently talking to our clients at the moment to see who's interested in what they want to do so that we can start rolling out carbon accounting and sustainability to our clients too.
And there aren't many people doing that, so that's definitely a value add. That's definitely a value add, and I think that feeds right into what we were talking about at the start, right, around value, and exactly how you've just described it to there is what's going to make business owners go, hadn't even considered that, but actually people are going to start asking me about it if I can get on the front foot now.
And
Perfect.
it makes commercial sense as well, because it's,
Yeah.
you know, it's, I hate to use the word gimmick, but you know, if you're looking between two suppliers and one has good sustainability credentials, then that will sway a lot of people to go with that particular supplier. So
Definitely. I don't think it's gimmicky at all. It's becoming so much more important. And if we look at like the demographic of business owners and a lot of younger people starting businesses, etc., sustainability, the ethical side of business is becoming so much more important and so much more talked about. And again, I think it is going to start being a deciding factor when people are thinking about who they work with, and more importantly, who they don't work with, right? If you aren't being seen to make an effort with those kind of things. So I think that's really, really important. So amazing. Well done, you. Justine, what about you? What additional value add services are you bringing in for clients?
Well, firstly, I'm really keen to watch your journey. I'd like to pick up on your coattails there. Yeah, the same sort of stuff. We're also doing credit control using Chaser, and we're dipping our toe at the moment into kind of closing the circle a little bit there and doing with like debt collection.
Okay.
So it's a software that syncs in with Xero, called Get Paid, I think, and you can basically arrange that for your client. Because what we find is that with credit control is we get to a certain point in the process and we've chased by phone and we've chased by email and the client's just not going to pay. So unless your client is agreeable to contacting someone else, then it just doesn't get paid. So we're looking to kind of close that circle a little bit. Let's see how that works. And also, obviously, supplier payment runs with Telleroo. I really think that's my favorite add-on service, to be honest with you, because I feel like with this one, it adds to the accuracy of the accounting data itself rather. I think usually we would have sent a management report without realizing we had purchase invoices missing, because you don't realize it until the payment is made. Whereas now, because we're lining up the payment runs, we're checking the statements, we're calling the suppliers directly, which is something we would never have done before, to get copy invoices. And it also avoids this thing where the client, even if you tell them what to pay, they'll transpose the figures, won't they? And it's just not quite right. They just, or they double pay things, or they pay them in funny points of the month. So I think just really tidying that up and systemizing it is really, really great. I always feel when I win that supplier payment run for a client, we've really kind of got the full circle going on there.
I always say it makes
I
clients so sticky, right? If you are doing their payments for them as well, most of them aren't going anywhere.
No, that's it.
I've got a new client that's recently come on board, and I've set them all up, so we're now doing their payroll payments for them and supplier payments. And I was going through reconciling their balance sheet, and I realised that in October last year they'd overpaid a staff member. Now it's only about £8, so it wasn't major. Unfortunately, the staff member still works for them, but it's because they'd keyed in and they'd put in a 9 instead of a 1 on the pounds, and they had absolutely no idea. So one, they were really impressed that I'd reconciled the balance sheet and had discovered that they'd overpaid, a staff member. And then they just, oh my God, that's so amazing. Can't believe you found that. And I'm so glad now that all I have to do is press a button and the wages go through and I know that the figures are right.
That's it.
They just said it's just so much easier.
Yeah, it's all of that peace of mind, going to sleep knowing everything is where it should be, exactly as it should be, right?
They had absolutely no idea that they'd overpaid a staff member, I say 6 months ago.
Yeah, and like you say, thankfully by £8, not £800, but very easily could have been the same mistake.
It could have been, yeah.
It also saves an admin, because if their client, for example, pays the pay as you earn late, you've then got to log into that, figure out what they paid late and all the rest of it. And quite often they paid it late just because they've had other things going on that are more important. Not, so if you're making sure that goes through, it just flows better. It's just better all around.
Agreed. So I'm going to launch a very quick poll just for our lovely audience, just on how they are currently managing payments for clients. But while we are getting some answers to that, I'm intrigued. Justine, you mentioned kind of credit control. You're obviously using payments as well. When we think about software costs, how are you charging clients for those? Is that built into their packages? Are you charging for software separately?
Yeah, I charge for the software separately. I didn't with Chaser with the credit control, and they changed their pricing structure, and it just was a nightmare because I mean I think they doubled the price or something. It was quite sort of shocking, and I felt like they handled it really badly. But it made me realize that I didn't want to be, you know, I don't know, I think if you charge separately for the software, then when the software goes up, it's very clear that it's not you. I didn't want to be tarred with the same brush of doubling the prices, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, no, I agree. I find I've got some software where I take it. So for example, I use Swift for my management accounts, and that's a one-off fee for unlimited clients. So with that one, that's a price that I take because I can't really charge that out to clients because it's not a per client fee. But any software I've got where it's a per client fee, I would pass that cost on to the client. I think it's really important that, you know, if a price goes up or a price changes, they see that that's from the software vendor. That's not for me. That's not my price increase.
Yeah,
Um,
I completely agree. I think that transparency is really, really easy then, isn't it? You've got your cost for doing the work and for providing those services, and then here's the cost for the software itself. And like you say, it's super transparent, really, really easy to then manage. In terms of how our lovely audience are offering payments as a service at the moment, thankfully, the majority use Telleroo already, so that's fantastic. We have got some in there using other softwares, not offering it because they don't want to, not offering it but would like to. And then about 20% of the audience with direct access to client bank accounts, which is my least preferred method of making client payments. But I think it's the way that it was typically done, right? Is you'd have a few clients that wanted you to make payments and they'd give you access to their bank account and off you kind of went. I think from my perspective, working at Telleroo for the last 2 years, the horror stories that I hear are the thing that really, really puts me off that, right? It's
And
the
nobody
people
wants to do it anyway.
100%, no one wants to. Everyone's always sat there shaky hands typing in the numbers because of that risk associated. And Kirsty's put in the chat as well, actually we generally avoid paying client bills as it's a risk, and I think that's how people have always felt about it. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about companies like Telleroo, like competitors that are coming up, is that we are giving our accountants and bookkeepers an opportunity to offer this really important value add service while removing a lot of that risk and still putting the onus on the clients to approve and to pay and to do all of these things, which I think is fantastic.
the thing that I like with Teller as well is I can put notes on the payment run as well to say this has gone through, but actually I'm not 100. You know, you might want to double check this invoice. So you know.
Yeah.
So for example, I've got one client that I use on Telleroo, and he likes to pay his employee expenses really quickly. But we approved them in software first, and I had one that had come through. I knew the client had been away; they were behind on their approval, so I was able to put that payment into Telleroo with a note to say, "This is so and so's expenses. You signed the expenses sheet, but you haven't approved it in the software. But I know you want to pay it quickly, so I put it in." And it's good being able to exchange those messages, and I think it reduces the risk because yes, we're setting the payment up for them in Telleroo. We're saying yes, this invoice is in your software, it's gone through, you know, there's no duplicates, we've reconciled the statements. But at the end of the day, the option to push that button and pay that supplier is completely down to the client.
Exactly that. We've got a comment in the chat that says we only have a few with direct access, but we're looking to move away from this because of the risk factor, and until now we hadn't found a solution that worked for us and our clients. Welcome to Telleroo.
I think the other point to note, if you're thinking about Telleroo, one of the things I love about it is that if the client signs up and tries it for a couple of months and then doesn't do any payments the following month, you don't get charged. So if the client, for example, is a seasonal business and maybe wants to take care of their own payments over the winter, the account can just sit there and not be paid for until you're ready to use it again. So I think that's really an excellent thing that Telleroo offers. And I also want to point out, I think it's got the best customer service ever and the easiest way to open a bank account. It's just so fluid. I love it.
I've had
Yeah.
phone calls and customer support on a Sunday before now, so
I've had increased credit credit limits within about 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought I might have to
Gonna
wait
make me blush. But moving back into this conversation, technology, we've talked about a number of different technology providers. If anyone was at the digital accounting show, there was tons of talk about tech, the future of tech, AI, you name it, they were talking about it. I guess question for you, Justine, initially, what are you excited about at the moment, technology wise, and what do we need more of from the technology suppliers?
I'm excited about AI. I know it's a bit scary, and I am a bit scared as well, but I am excited. I suppose I visualize a situation where we can almost be conversational with our accounts package, where we can say, hey, there's an insurance payment in the bank account. Can you go and do the prepayment journals for us? And if you see them again, can you do it the next time as well? But maybe alert me, and it'll alert you. Maybe it'll identify if, for example, someone's added a driver and it's a small amount, that doesn't need accrued over the year, but maybe over the remaining 6 months. If it identified these things and kind of alerted you, it would be so easy. And I'd also like it if you could say, hey, could you pull up the report that I normally use to check my VAT returns? Could you sort it by date? Could you, and it just knows which report you want and automatically sorts it the way that you want it, and then probably identifies any unusual transactions. And I would love it if it could go through your accounts, your clients' accounts, and spot any unusual transactions for AML, because that's my pet hate. So bring that on, someone.
AML is definitely a hot topic at the moment. We've got some really exciting emerging AML software at the moment. And I'm really, really excited to start seeing what they do and who they integrate with and what that starts to look like, because I think it's an area that has been notoriously difficult and neglected for quite a long time. And I think with all the tech that we have now, there's no reason that we shouldn't be able to make this really, really simple.
Doesn't progress our businesses. Like, it's something we have to do, but it's frustrating because you spend so much time on it and it's not actually moving anything forward for you
And
personally.
it's one of those things that clients don't see the value in either. It's really hard. That's in terms of where we're confident to sell our value. It's very, very hard to sell value on AML. Although I do now charge an onboarding fee, which I haven't had any pushback on at all.
I was going to say, you charge an onboarding fee. What I think is going to be interesting with AML is I agree, right? Typically, when we look at introducing new software, new processes, whatever, there's usually a bit of a carrot or a stick, right? AML has definitely always been the stick. But I think with some of the stuff that some of the providers are starting to talk about, we might start to get a carrot, which is that actually what we'll be able to start doing is like risk profiling client bases and looking at bringing in credit scoring and opportunities so that when you're doing onboarding, you'll have an onboarding fee for bringing them on, but as alongside the AML element of it, there'll also be almost like a risk overview and an opportunity to present the client with like, hey, here's some things that flag up about your business as potential risks around credit, around late payments, around this kind of stuff, and tie all of that into like some kind of risk model for clients that will then be useful to them, as well as you just needing to tick your box and make sure that you guys are compliant, right?
Yeah, I think it's really exciting. I think there's so much. I mean, I'm loving playing around with AML. Sorry, with AI and looking at different things that we can playing around with AML. No, maybe not.
That's what I was thinking. I was really tell me how to.
No, but I'm loving using AI and exploring different ways that we can use that within our business and within our practice. And I think it's a bit like when cloud accounting came in. Everybody said, "Oh, cloud accounting is coming in, bookkeeping will be dead." And actually, it's the opposite. It's just given us so many more automations, and now we can have really bang up to date information, which means we can have much better conversations with our clients. And I think AI is going to do the same. I think that the progress that we're seeing with tech at the moment and the things it can help us with, we're just going to be able to add more and more value to our clients all the time. And if it can make AML smoother and an easier process as well, that's even better.
Yes, thank you. But I think in terms of whether it's going to be someone that is providing more around AI, whether it's going to be around AML, whatever it is, what do you guys feel that actually suppliers could be doing more of to support you with the implementation of these new processes and technology?
Education, I guess, just more education. And I think just talking to other bookkeepers and hearing what they're doing as well is really effective for keeping yourself on top of things.
Yeah, I think it comes down again, it's education. It's very easy when you take on a new piece of software. But you know, you go to DAS, Accountex, wherever, you see a great new piece of shiny software and you buy it. It's then difficult to make sure that you're actually using all the features of that software. So I think it's education, having ways that, you know, we can do a course that makes sure that we're using all the features, updates coming through. But again, it has to be, time is really precious. We don't have time to do things that are going to take hours. It needs to be bite-sized education.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the challenges that suppliers have always had is they are super excited to get you through the front door, right? That's the reality. They're really excited to get you in, and then it's like, okay, off you go.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it's either that, or I think we see the opposite, where it's really, really intensive, like you're saying, where actually it's so much to do that it feels like such a project that then it doesn't get done. You use the bits that you need, and then everything else kind of gets left. And I think the software vendors as a community are really starting to focus more time on this, which I think is fantastic and very much needed. And I think what we're going to start to see is a real shift from account management, where you're getting a couple of phone calls a year going, are you okay? Thanks, bye, into true customer success, where they're going to be saying, okay, Justine, Penelope, what do you want to achieve in the next year? You want to grow. Okay, well, there's two ways you're going to do that. It's going to be new clients or upselling existing. What's your focus? Upselling existing. Okay, great. Well, if, for example, you were to offer payments to 50% of your client base at a margin of this, what would that look like? Oh, okay, great. So now the conversation isn't, hey, Penelope, can you add some more clients to Telleroo? It's like, how are we finding the right clients? What kind of clients need payments? And those like really supportive conversations. And I think there are absolute gems in our space that you guys can probably name a few of the people that you have those relationships with, where, you know, if you needed a new forecasting software, you could call them and they'd go, actually, most of our clients are using this and that kind of stuff. And they are truly helpful and helping support your business. And I'm sure you can also name the ones where that's not the case, right? But I think hopefully we're starting to see that real shift into like true success account management for you guys.
I think there's so much, I'm not sure if other people see this in other industries, but within bookkeeping and accounting, it's a hugely collaborative space, and we're all helping each other, sharing tips and advice. And I think the really good suppliers have those user communities there as well, so that, you know, we can share best practice and see the best ways of doing things as well.
Yeah, definitely. And if we look at the results from that last poll around what everyone else would like more of from their suppliers, it's very much what you guys were saying: education, onboarding support, that ongoing support that's likely going to be in the form of communities, etc. So I think it's fantastic to see we're all aligned with that. We now just need to send this little clip to all of the software vendors, and we'll solve that problem. But that is fantastic. My last question to you before we do a little bit of Q&A is just, if we look to the future and we think about the bookkeeping industry as a whole, what should other bookkeepers be thinking about? What should they be doing to stay ahead? Justine, I'm going to go to you first.
I think that we're going to move away from real-time bookkeeping and into instantaneous bookkeeping. I think when businesses generate a sale or make a purchase, I think it's all going to be automated, and it's automatically going to hit their accounts, and it's automatically going to hit the UK tax system. I think they already have a model like this in India, which surprised and shocked me, but they apparently scan a QR code and the information just gets absorbed into the system. So I think our role as bookkeepers is going to really change a lot again, and we're really going to be the managers of the apps and the softwares and the systems and the processes. So if we don't stay on top of this kind of thing, we're going to fall behind. And I think to stay on top of it, I think the key here is your workflow software. I think it's really, really important to have a great workflow software that aids communication with your team, that allows you to map out your processes. And, you know, in my case, I use Carbon, which I absolutely love and put down to my growth entirely, because there's no way that I could operate the way that I do without it. And we map out all the processes for all the clients, and we back it up with Loom videos. We have shortcuts embedded in there to encourage people to use it. And we really make it so that anybody could come in and step into anybody else's space and carry out the work. And I think that's what we're going to have to keep a handle on when we're moving through these new apps and things like that.
Definitely.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's, with e-invoicing and everything else that's coming in, I think there's going to be a lot more electronic handshakes on things, and the basic data entry, the boring stuff, which, let's face it, none of us really enjoy doing. I think that's going to go, and I think we need to embrace technology, but then it's looking at how we interpret that technology. It's holding our clients' hands. It's making sure that they've got the right apps that they're using, the right systems, the right processes for them, making sure they've got the correct controls in place, and then having those regular conversations to help them interpret the data.
Mhm. I think the
Couldn't-
paperwork will disappear. I think at some point in the future, there will be no paperwork.
Yeah.
Probably
Here's to hoping.
I'm finished with
Yeah.
it all, but I think that will happen for sure.
But I think we're moving more and more towards, and clients are waking up to it as well. They want someone that they can speak to on a regular basis, somebody that knows their business better than they do, which is where bookkeepers have always come into their own. So I think we need to see more collaboration with bookkeepers and accountants, but I think certainly everything is moving towards that daily entry, regular communication, and just the level of depth that we are able to know our clients' businesses with now.
Absolutely. We could carry on talking for a very long time, but I am a
Good.
big fan of starting and finishing on time. So I am going to dive into Q&A. I've got 3 questions that we're going to rattle through. So the first is, as a client, how do you find a diligent bookkeeper? This person says, unfortunately, they've had a few who haven't maybe been up to scratch for them, and it's impacted the business. So one top tip each from you of what businesses should be looking for in a bookkeeper. Justine, over to you first.
I think that your bookkeeper needs to understand the balance sheet and be able to correct it for you, because if the balance sheet isn't correct, so if your figures in your bank account and your stock figures and what your customers and suppliers are owed is not correct, then the rest of it can't be correct. So I don't know that you can find a good bookkeeper in advance. But once you have a bookkeeper, I think you can check the bookkeeper's doing a good job by checking your balance sheet and making sure that all those figures make sense. Beyond that, people's skill level is difficult to assess until they're in there, isn't it? But if you feel comfortable with them and you understand what they're saying and the communication is good, I think that they're the first steps.
Yeah, I think communication is key. I think it's understanding a bookkeeper isn't just about data entry, and people don't realise it's not a regulated profession. So just because somebody says they're a bookkeeper doesn't mean that they are a bookkeeper. And I know this upsets a lot of people when, you can be a very good bookkeeper qualified by experience. You don't have to be with a professional body. But I think if somebody, whether they're with a professional body or not, but I think you need to look at their qualifications, look at their experience, make sure that they're not just a data entry clerk, because that is not what a bookkeeper is. And then look at communication. Do they understand your figures? When you have that initial discovery call, are they asking the right questions about your business? Are they able to add value in that initial call because they really understand business and they know what makes business tick? And do you have that rapport with them? Can you have a conversation with them? Because at the end of the day, sharing your numbers is a very intimate process. So you have to be working with somebody that you trust and that you can tell everything to. We can't help you if we don't understand what your plans are. Are you planning to buy a house? Do you need a new car? Are you struggling financially? We need to understand those, and you have to be honest with us.
I always offer as well to allow new clients to talk to existing clients in a similar style business. I always offer to put them in touch. So you could ask to be put in touch with an existing client in a similar field and just have a chat with them and see exactly how they feel about the service. And if they're not willing to offer that, then there's a good chance they're not proud of their own service.
Perfect. Right, we're going to quick fire these ones. First one, if you go back to the start of your journey, what advice would you give yourself? Penelope, you first.
I think get pricing right is key. I think it's understanding that you are running a business, it's not a job. So rates that you might get in employment are not what you should be charging your clients. You need to make sure you're charging enough to cover CPD, your overheads, taking on staff. So getting pricing right definitely is key, and systemizing your business.
Love it. Justine, your one piece of advice for yourself at the start?
I would have adopted cloud accounting sooner and built my team sooner as well. I think it can be a little bit scary taking those steps, but I would have jumped in quicker for sure.
Perfect. And last one before we wrap up, with all of the apps and software that's in the marketplace or entering the space, for Kieran in the chat, it seems that the trajectory is heading towards more advisory services. Do you have a plan to get on board with that potential shift? Penelope, back to you.
I think it's something that we're doing already, really. So some of our clients do have their own accountants, but actually we can offer everything in-house. And I would say it's moving more, definitely is moving more and more towards advisory. But because we know our clients' business in depth, because of doing the bookkeeping, it's just a natural progression, really.
Justine, what about you?
I'm a little bit on the fence with this one, to be honest, because I think my biggest strengths lies in the systems and the processes, and I really like that. I think with advisory, it's my time as opposed to my team's, because I'm not at the stage where I've employed people that are in that advisory space. So I may go in that direction. But I also think that advisory doesn't have to be big and fancy. It can just be understanding your clients' accounts and being able to communicate in a language that's probably, like, I feel like I don't talk accountant speak, I talk business speak. So I feel like I can communicate and help clients understand their profit and loss and their balance sheet without using the fancy words, because sometimes I don't even understand them. Sometimes I get my credits and debits up. So I think not using words like that really can be advisory on a more personal level and a more day-to-day level without necessarily venturing. That said, I mean, we do cash flow forecasting and we work with Fathom and things like that. So we do, but I don't go for it in a big way at the moment.
Perfect. Thank you both so very much. Anyone that's still here, if you want to connect with Penelope or Justine, they are both on LinkedIn. I'm sure they'll be more than happy to connect and have a chat with you. But a huge thank you to both of you for sharing everything that you have today, and to our wonderful audience for all of their contributions as well. Recording will be sent out. Please feel free to share it with anyone that you would like. And I believe my details will likely be on there too. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions. But thank you all very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.